I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. The day had settled into a dusky calm as I drove home from a grueling day at the office. On impulse, I swung my car into the parking lot outside Mia's workplace, thinking I'd surprise her with an impromptu dinner date. The area was half empty, dimly lit by the flickering street lamps that cast long shadows across the pavement. As I pulled into a spot, my eyes caught a familiar glint, the silver of our second car parked in a far corner, partially obscured by a sprawling oak tree. Curiosity piqued, I killed the engine and approached quietly, my footsteps muffled by the soft hum of the city around us. Drawing closer, the muffled sounds of laughter floated through the air, instantly tightening my chest. Peering through the half-fogged window, the sight that greeted me sent a searing pain through my heart. There, in the dim glow of the dashboard, was Mia, unmistakably engaged in an intimate act with someone I didn't recognize, her head bowed in a way that left no room for doubt. The shock rooted me to the spot, a mix of disbelief and anguish flooding my senses. How could she? After all the years, the promises. I took a step back, the sound of my breath loud in the silent tension of the lot. The laughter stopped, they hadn't seen me. Rage bubbled up, mingling with the sharp sting of betrayal. I didn't confront them. No, I needed a plan, something to ensure she couldn't just walk away from this unscathed. Back in my car, my hands shook as they gripped the steering wheel. The image of her betrayal replayed over and over, fueling a cold resolve. I started the engine and drove off, my mind racing with plans of retribution. This wasn't just going to end with a confrontation. No, I was going to make sure she regretted betraying me. She would lose everything, just as I felt I had in that soul-crushing moment. I began by documenting everything, gathering evidence for the impending legal battles. Then, I moved on to the subtler, more personal aspects of her life. Friends, career, her social standing, I meticulously crafted my moves to dismantle each one. Each step was calculated, each action precise, ensuring that by the time I was done, Mia would have nothing left but the memory of what she had destroyed. The divorce papers were the final blow, served coldly on a rainy morning. She opened the door, her eyes widening in shock as she took in the manila envelope. There was no dramatic confrontation, no tearful apologies, just the quiet certainty of a life irrevocably altered. As I walked away from her house for the last time, the weight of what had transpired settled deep within me. It was over. I had won, yet the victory tasted bitter. She was out of my life, forever, but the scars remained, a constant reminder of the cost of betrayal. The intrigue of how far the fallout would spread and what it would ultimately cost both of us was a tale yet to unfold, reserved for the chapters to come. The sun had barely crept above the skyline when my phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand. The screen flashed a number I didn't recognize, but the urgency compelled me to answer. Hello. My voice was groggy with sleep. Is this Tom? The voice on the other end was strained, desperate. Yeah, who's asking? It's Eric, Mia's friend. We need to talk. It's urgent. Can we meet? Something in his tone, fear, perhaps, or urgency, set off alarms in my mind. All right. Where? The coffee shop on 5th, in 30 minutes. I agreed and hung up, my mind racing with possibilities. What could Mia's lover possibly want with me now? Whatever it was, it might just feed into my plan for retribution. At the coffee shop, I spotted Eric immediately. He was a nervous wreck, glancing over his shoulder every few seconds until he saw me. I approached, my demeanor calm, controlled. Tom, thank you for coming, Eric muttered as I sat down. He looked worse for wear, bags under his eyes and a jittery leg bouncing under the table. Speak, I demanded, my voice low. It's Mia, she's spiraling. Losing you, the friends, her job, it's too much. She's talking crazy, saying she's going to end it all. I leaned back, processing his words. This was an angle I hadn't anticipated. My plan was to break her, yes, but the reality of her desperation was a splash of cold water to my anger. What do you want from me, Eric? You think I'm going to step in and save her? After what you two did? No, I don't know. I thought maybe, just maybe, you didn't mean for things to go this far. I scoffed. I wanted her to feel a fraction of what I felt that night. She deserves every bit of her misery. Eric's face went pale. But she's talking about killing herself, Tom. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I paused, a flicker of the old love tugging at my heart. Then I hardened it. Tell her she's reaping what she sowed. And you? You're just as guilty. I stood up to leave, but Eric grabbed my arm. You loved her once, Tom. Please. I shook off his grip. I loved a woman who didn't exist. Tell Mia she's on her own. As I walked away, Eric's voice followed me. You'll regret this, Tom. You can't just destroy someone and walk away. Back in my car, my heart pounded against my ribs. I had set out to dismantle Mia's life, and it was working, but at what cost? Was I really prepared to carry the weight of her possible demise? The doubts were like gnats, annoying but impossible to completely ignore. As I drove off, my thoughts turned once again to my plan. There were more steps to execute, more pieces of Mia's life to pull apart. But now, a new element was added to the mix, her potential self-destruction. The stakes were higher, and my next moves would need to be calculated with precision. The plot was thickening, and the path forward was fraught with moral ambiguities. How far was too far? That was a question I would have to answer soon, as the story of betrayal and retribution unfolded with each passing day. The following week blurred into a cascade of relentless actions and cold calculations. As the city dawned with a brisk, chill morning, I found myself outside Mia's once favorite boutique, the site of my next move. A few calls had been enough to bar her from entering, citing unpaid bills and unruly behavior I'd fabricated. The small humiliations piled up, a strategic dismantling of her once charmed life. Today was different. Today was the day I struck at her heart, the art gallery. Mia loved her art, a passion that ran deeper than anything else in her life, even me, it seemed. She was scheduled for a showcase, a culmination of years of hidden work. She never wanted me there, claiming it was her sacred space. Perfect. I reached into my coat, feeling the weight of the USB drive in my pocket. The drive was loaded with manipulated images, explicit and incriminating, ready to ruin her artistic reputation. My steps were measured as I approached the gallery, the crisp morning air doing little to cool my simmering rage. Inside, the gallery was abuzz with the early crowd, a mix of patrons and critics milling about, glasses of wine in hand. I spotted Mia, nervously adjusting her pieces, her usual confidence replaced by a jittery anticipation. Seeing her like this, vulnerable, almost broke the hardened shell I'd built around my heart. Almost. I slipped the drive to the young technician managing the digital displays. Make sure these get shown too, a special request from the artist herself, I lied smoothly, slipping him a 50. She's trying something different this time. He nodded, not caring enough to question the extra cash or the request. The stage was set. As the showcase began, I positioned myself at the back, a silent observer to the impending fallout. Mia took the stage, a smile playing on her lips as she introduced her work, unaware of the devastation about to unfold. The first few pieces were received well, light applause filling the air. Then, the images from my drive appeared on the screens, grotesque and shocking against the backdrop of her elegant art. The room fell into an instant, stunned silence. Mia's face drained of color as she turned to the screens, her eyes widening in horror. What is this? This isn't mine, she stammered, her voice cracking under the weight of her public humiliation. I felt a rush of vindictive satisfaction, watching her scramble to explain the images to the confused and disgusted crowd. People began murmuring, some turning away in disdain, others whispering about the fallen artist. Mia's gaze met mine across the room, a flash of realization crossing her face. "Tom," she whispered, almost inaudible over the chaos. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned and walked out, the echoing sounds of her ruined reputation following me out of the gallery. My heart was a mix of triumph and a twinge of sorrow for the love we once shared. But the sorrow was a ghost, fleeting and insubstantial against the solid presence of my revenge. Outside, the cool air was a balm to my heated face. As I walked away, my phone vibrated with messages and notifications, news of Mia's disgrace spreading like wildfire. But amidst the digital uproar, a single thought remained clear and sharp in my mind: she was getting exactly what she deserved. Yet, as I moved through the bustling city streets, a shadow of doubt crept in. The thrill of revenge was intoxicating, powerful, but it left a bitter aftertaste. With each step, the question loomed larger: was the price of vengeance worth the cost of my own humanity? As the city lights flickered in the distance, reflecting a mosaic of the life I once shared with Mia, the final act of my plan unfolded under the shroud of night. The gallery debacle had been merely a prelude, a public spectacle to set the stage for a far deeper, more personal retribution. I sat in my car, parked outside the nondescript warehouse where Eric had been keeping some of Mia's most prized possessions, artworks she deemed too valuable to display. A tip from a mutual friend, who'd become an unwitting ally in my scheme, led me here. Tonight was about more than humiliation, it was about obliteration. The lock on the warehouse door gave way easily under the force of my bolt cutters. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of oil paint and varnish. My flashlight swept over canvas after canvas, each piece a testament to Mia's shattered dreams. But I wasn't here to destroy art. In the far corner of the warehouse, hidden beneath a tarp, was what I really came for: the collection of rare vintage wines Eric had amassed, a fortune in liquid assets. Mia knew nothing of this; it was Eric's secret indulgence, one I intended to exploit. I dialed the number of the local police station, my voice calm and anonymous as I reported a suspected burglary in progress, hinting at a possible black market wine operation. It was a tip they couldn't ignore. As I slipped out of the warehouse, the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. This was not just revenge, it was annihilation. Eric would be arrested, his secrets laid bare, his life intertwined with Mia's ruin. Days later, I sat across from Mia in the cold, sterile environment of the police station. She was a suspect now, dragged into the depths by Eric's crimes. Our eyes met across the table, a chasm of betrayal between us. "Mia," I began, my voice devoid of the warmth it once held, "did you really think I wouldn't find out about everything?" Her eyes, red-rimmed and weary, widened in confusion. "Tom, I don't understand. The wine, the art, what does this have to do with me?" "It has everything to do with you," I sneered. "You and Eric, plotting behind my back, living lives I was too blind to see. But not anymore." Mia shook her head, her voice a whisper of despair. "Tom, I swear, I didn't know about any wine collection. Please, you have to believe me." "Believe you?" I laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "After everything, you expect belief?" I stood, the chair scraping against the floor with a finality that echoed in the empty room. "This is where we part, Mia. You've lost everything now. And as for me, I've gained the freedom I never knew I needed." As I walked away, leaving Mia to her fate, the police officers shuffled through the paperwork, sealing her charges. The door closed behind me with a resolute thud, the sound of finality. The drive home was long and silent. The city passed by in a blur, each light a reminder of the darkness I'd embraced. In my quest for vengeance, I had crossed lines from which there was no return. Mia was broken, perhaps beyond repair, and Eric's future was one behind bars. But as I parked my car and stepped into the solitude of my empty apartment, a surprising peace settled over me. The vengeance was complete, the betrayal avenged, and yet, the victory was hollow. I realized then, staring out at the city that had witnessed our entire drama unfold, that in my pursuit of retribution, I had lost more than I had ever gained. Mia and I were forever parted, not just by hatred and betrayal, but by the irreversible scars of a revenge that had consumed us both.